exciting, I have to say. It's going to help move Kenya into a new future.
Projects whose implementation has commenced include the 140 megawatts of Carrier 5, 70 megawatts of Carrier 1 Unit 6, or Carrier 1 refurbishment, as well as phase 1 of the 80 megawatts Meru wind farm, all due for completion in 2018. Our renewable expansion agenda is in sync with the plan by the Kenyan government to inject 5,000 plus megawatts into the national grid, mainly from green sources, making our country a front runner in championing the cause for green energy. KenGen's geothermal capacity currently stands at 514 megawatts and accounts for about 22% of the installed capacity and around 38% of the total electricity consumed in Kenya. But the country's total geothermal power output is 643 megawatts, making Kenya the 8th largest geothermal power producer in the world and the highest in Africa. Of course, we recognize that the US is number one in terms of geothermal, and we are definitely chasing you towards also generating a lot of geothermal. If we can tap the 10,000 megawatts, we'll be very close to the US. So indeed, KenGen is in the forefront in turning Kenya into a green economy. So ladies and gentlemen, through the MoU that we've just signed today, KenGen will design and implement projects to deliver the 2,500 megawatts by the year 2025 with a financial requirement of about $9 billion US dollars, estimated at about 900 billion Kenya shillings at today's exchange rate. KenGen has a strong track record of project execution and bringing power generation capacity online, commitment to develop clean renewable power, as well as a desire to improve operation efficiency and effectiveness. We have registered impressive success in project development, financial restructuring, capital raising, and contract management to achieve on time and on budget power project execution. We are confident, therefore, that our cooperation with Power Africa will lead to a long-term strategic partnership that will help KenGen to bring megawatts online and make a positive impact not only on the lives of Kenyans but on all East Africans. KenGen, being a geothermal development leader, is also committed to championing building capacities of neighboring countries in the development of geothermal as a means of making available clean and affordable energy in this region. Our partnership with Power Africa is not only beneficial to Kenya, but to the entire African continent. We are therefore happy to be part of this partnership, which seeks to enhance the volume and capacity of power supply in Kenya, thereby creating a conducive investment climate and enabling sustainable economic growth.
We recall the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in 2014 when President Obama reaffirmed that Power Africa's reach extends across all the sub-Saharan Africa and tripled Power Africa's goals to work towards adding 30,000 megawatts of new clean electricity generation capacity and increasing electricity access by at least 60 million new connections. In his words during his last visit to Africa, President Obama rightly said, "Even with Africa's impressive progress, we must acknowledge that many of these gains rest on fragile foundation. And alongside new wealth, hundreds of millions of Africans still endure extreme poverty. Alongside high-tech hubs of innovation, many Africans are crowded into shanty towns without power or running water, a level of poverty that is an insult on human dignity. Your Excellency, as is the African practice, visitors are always welcome, and when the visitor is very important, like you are, the level of preparation is augmented. This has been the case with KenGen. We have been building a foundation for high-level strategic alliance to advance our generation expansion strategy. Our partnership with you will truly transform our company and our people. With these remarks, it is now my pleasure to welcome Your Excellency Robert Godek, Ambassador of the United States of America, to make your remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here this morning. thank you very, very much for the very warm welcome here to KenGen. And it's, of course, a particular pleasure to be here for this very important launch, this launch of a new partnership between the Kenya Electricity Generating Company Limited, KenGen, and the U.S. Power Africa Initiative. And our goal here is to work with you to bring 2,500 megawatts of low-cost, clean power online in Kenya over the next 10 years. And I think when we succeed, it will in fact be truly transformative. So in June 2013, President Obama, of course, launched Power Africa as a partnership between the U.S. government, African governments, bilateral and multilateral partners, and the private sector. And the private sector involvement obviously is a particularly crucial part of this. But the goal is really to double access to electricity across sub-Saharan Africa. And to meet this goal, the United States and its partners recognized that public and private sectors would really have to work together, really to reinvent energy development, power generation in Africa. And today, Power Africa is a diverse coalition representing 120 public and private partners who collectively have committed to investing an estimated $43 billion in Africa's energy future, to really realizing the goal of connecting more people. And the goal is to connect an additional 60 million people and businesses and to generate 30,000 megawatts of power of clean energy over the next several years. I think it is an extraordinary thing. I do think that it will be, as I said before, transformative. In building on over 50 years of collaboration with the U.S. government, Kenya was one of the very first countries to sign a cooperative framework with Power Africa in 2014. And this framework directly supports the government of Kenya's Vision 2030 goals, rapidly increasing electricity generation and transforming Kenya into a newly industrialized middle-income country. And in Kenya, Power Africa is actively supporting a group of programs that will generate more than 1,200 megawatts of clean, renewable energy. It's working with the Ministry of Energy, the private sector, to tackle some of the most pressing challenges that Kenya has in the power sector. We're assisting in revising the grid code, strengthening management of intermittent renewable energy resources. We're also developing new models to attract domestic and international investment to geothermal, wind, and solar power, all areas of great potential for Kenyan electricity generation. I do think that one of the key things to emphasize here is the clean aspect of what KenGen plans to do in a world that faces, frankly, a genuine long-term threat from climate change. Kenya's commitment to generate power in a way that is sustainable and that will help our environment is truly commendable. And I just want to thank KenGen for helping to lead the way, the government of Kenya, everybody who's involved in making certain that this power is in fact going to be green. Obviously, one of the key challenges on these sorts of projects is financing and finding the money to build projects like this. And so, we were pleased to work as Power Africa with the ministry and with others to launch a CEO-level steering committee to develop a roadmap that will raise between 14 and 18 billion US dollars for the energy sector, really to meet Kenya's goal of generating this power. And the funding for this, the 14 to 18 billion, will largely come from the private sector, but it's critical to have a plan and then to implement that plan. So today we're celebrating this new strategic partnership to work toward these goals and to continue the growth and evolution of Africa as one of Africa's most successful public utilities. KenGen is both a principal driver of Kenya's electricity generation success story, and it's, I think most importantly, a key part, an essential part really, of the future of where Kenya is going to get its power from. And our partnership will help improve KenGen's operational efficiency. It'll assist KenGen in meeting global utility performance standards. It'll boost its overall financial stability. It'll enhance KenGen's ability to deliver on-time and on-budget electricity for years to come. It'll result in increased access to reliable, clean, renewable power for all Kenyans. The cooperative framework we're launching outlines KenGen's commitment to implement a plan that will increase available generation capacity, explore new project development structures, optimize project development, and improve balance sheets to enable further project financing. The U.S. government, as part of this, commits to use the resources of 14 U.S. government agencies that make up Power Africa's toolbox to support KenGen's development of new power generation. And these resources will include transaction, financial, legal, procurement, contracts management assistance, as well as guarantees, grants, and debt financing. Power Africa also works with its other partners in the public and private sector to bring their resources and assistance to the table to help meet KenGen's goals. An increase in power generation by 2,500 megawatts in the next 10 years is no small task. In fact, it's a very big task. But I am absolutely confident that KenGen is up to this challenge, that it will succeed in meeting these goals for the benefit of the people of Kenya. I just want to acknowledge the shared commitment that we have, that the government of Kenya, that KenGen has, applaud the progress that Kenya has been making on delivering its clean energy commitments. And we look forward to working with you as KenGen continues to grow and strengthen, continues to expand the availability of cleaner and less expensive power to the people of Kenya. And I'll just underscore again that the United States is a proud partner of the government and people of Kenya in helping to secure Kenya's future, to achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself under Vision 2030. And we look forward to a very big success in the years to come. So thank you very, very much.
Currently, we have projects which are under implementation. We've floated some tenders. In the last 2 weeks, we, for example, issued tender documents for our next project, the 140 megawatts of Carrier 5. Yesterday, we went to the papers with pre-qualification of bidders for Carrier 1 Unit 6. And with this initiative, we are already preparing to have about 700 megawatts by 2020 in the next 5 years. So that's part of the project that we are looking at. And as we've said, in the next 10 years, we expect to step that up to as much as 2,500. All this energy will be green energy. Geothermal, we estimate to give us slightly over 600 megawatts. And wind, we have a wind project in Meru of about 80 megawatts. We're also expecting to put about 10 megawatts of wind in Gong. So geothermal is taking the bigger part of it. In terms of financing, it's going to be a big figure. We are talking of, for the 700, we are talking of slightly over $2 billion US dollars. We have different ways of financing this project. One source is where we get money from the DFIs, the Development Financial Institutions, like what we are doing for the immediate project. The Carrier 5, we're getting a loan, which we signed about 2 weeks ago from the JICA, the Japan International Cooperative Agency. For the Carrier 6, we are talking to the European Investment Bank, the World Bank. So part of that will come from the traditional way of financing those projects. But what we're also doing is then moving into a new realm where we are getting into JVs, joint ventures. And we are starting with the first project, or Carrier 6 project, where we've started the procurement of a transaction advisor through the Public-Private Partnership Unit at the National Treasury. We've just completed that process, and negotiations are going on so that we can sign the contract of the transaction advisor. And on the basis of that, we would then be able to get JV partners who bring in equity and also help us to get the debt to finance those projects.
One of the things that's critical here is private capital, private investment in these projects. I mean, that is where a huge amount of money, frankly, is available for Kenya's development. And that is why, for example, we put together this private sector group that's at the CEO level, which is looking at this question of how exactly does Kenya get to the 14 to 18 billion dollars that it needs projected over the sort of medium-term future for power generation and particularly for clean energy.
Community issues is an alive problem, a challenge in most infrastructure projects of this country. Basically because of the new constitution and the Kenyan being an aware person and they know their rights and so on. So we are engaging the leadership from the respective areas. The leaders and KenGen are in talking terms. Okay, the Naivasha issue, like you read in the press that we took the land and things like that. Of course, we've provided the documentation, and KenGen is a responsible corporate citizen. We actually purchased that land transparently. We paid the money to the right people, and we have evidence of all the authority. We sought the authority. We went through the process, and we got the necessary approvals, and even the funding was paid, it was channeled in the correct way.